Chat, welcome to Meteorological Curiosities. Extreme weather. This is the sequel to the previous weather segment, and this is a pack by 634. They say, I didn't like how part 1 turned out, as I underestimated how long it would take to read through the segments and how technical it got. So I took Vinny's feedback for part 1, made some changes to how I was going to do part 2, which will be all about extreme weather. This will go into tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, winter storms, thunderstorms, and more. We won't go as deep into technical detail this time around. Cool. But we do have some interesting and extreme cases. Chat and comments on the VOD seem to enjoy some of the technical aspects, so as a compromise, I'm going to share a link with a small handful of resources. That'll be in the YouTube video. But we're going to start with general extreme weather. Entry number 1, Death Valley record high. All right, let's see. So I found it interesting. Part 1 was definitely interesting, but no, I mean, for me, it's also some of the technical stuff. If it's really wordy, it can be exhausting for my brain. That's all. But here we go. Death Valley record high. In the northern Mojave Desert in California lies Death Valley, where it gets very hot in the summer. At what is appropriately named Furnace Creek, a record high temperature of 134 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded in July 1913, the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth. At this temperature, wax will start to melt, which includes candles and crayons. Death Valley lies over 250 feet below sea level, is surrounded by mountains, and has virtually no plant life, meaning the sun heats the ground. The hot air is trapped inside the valley, creating a natural oven effect. It doesn't get much better at night, as the temperature can still exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer months. Now, speaking of bacon, egg, and cheese, I wonder, can you cook an egg in 140-ish degrees Fahrenheit? Yes, but slowly. Interesting. Vostok record low. Vostok is a Russian research station about 800 miles east of the South Pole. The Vostok station is in one of the most inhospitable places in the world. Bitter cold, where temperatures can reach up to 100 degrees below zero. A complete dearth of moisture, howling winds, and complete darkness from May to September. Lovely place. Let's see. In July 1983, the world's coldest temperature was recorded here, a bone-chilling negative 128 degrees Fahrenheit. At temperatures this cold, frostbite and hypothermia will happen in just minutes. This temperature was recorded with instruments on the ground, but satellites suggest that it may get even colder than this at some parts of eastern Antarctica. So a couple thoughts. One is there is like a base. I watched a video of someone at some base. It's not this one. Near a pole. And it was really cool to see how they lived. That's A. I know it's very general. And B is, it's crazy how they were able to build this where it is in temperatures like that and even get those materials over there. Very, very interesting. Why use Fahrenheit? Use Celsius, for Christ's sake. Sorry, I know Fahrenheit, and the pack creator included Fahrenheit. I understand you may like Celsius. I don't know it that well. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. This is pretty famous. In July 1940, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was completed and opened, providing a route to get across the Puget Sound from Tacoma, Washington. But the bridge's plate girder design did not allow enough air to get through the deck. It became a problem when it came across the frequent windstorms in the Pacific Northwest locals called big blows. In November, one of those windstorms came through, and the bridge would violently swing, twist, and buckle until it collapsed. Since then, suspension bridges have been designed to be more aerodynamic and allow more airflow through the deck to prevent such a disaster like this from happening again. This is something I've seen for years. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. But yeah, I mean, it collapsed. And it just doesn't make sense that something like this could happen. It looks fake. It's very fascinating though. Acid rain. When sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide emissions from cars and factories mix with the weather, you get acid rain. The emissions mix with water to form nitric and sulfuric acid that comes down from the sky whenever it rains, poisoning waterways, damaging masonry and concrete, causing extensive corrosion on steel structures like buildings and bridges, and killing plants and trees. Frequent bouts of acid rain is destructive to both flora and fauna and will eventually turn the ecosystem into a wasteland. Acid rain is not as big of a problem in the US and Europe anymore thanks to clean air laws that were passed in the last 50 years. So, kind of crazy the damage it's able to do. However, chat, I'll be honest, when I was a kid, I thought acid rain was like literal acid. And it was just cartoon brain and video game brain. And acid, in my mind, was like able to melt steel. Because that's what I saw in the cartoons. Well, yes, it is. I mean, it's acidic. But I thought it was like green, like Terminator type acid that would just melt clean through like alien blood. Yes, from the Alien film. Corrodes steel is one thing, but going through steel like alien blood, maybe I was a little bit wrong. Entry number 5. New England's Dark Day. On May 19th, 1780, darkness fell upon New England when it was supposed to be daylight. A coincidental combination of dense fog, cloud cover, and wildfire smoke would almost completely blot out the sun that day, even at noon. It got so dark that candles had to be used to see outside. People began to panic. They thought Judgment Day was coming, and that the end of the world was near. The darkness would last until the conditions dispersed by night the next day. Obviously, cameras didn't exist until the 18th century, so what you have here is an artist's depiction of total darkness on what was supposed to be broad daylight. That would be, even now, even with explanation, I'm sure plenty of people would also be like, oh, no, end of the world. Yeah, all right. Well, gonna go to Atlantic City, gamble. There's, obviously, I've talked about on stream, but a couple years ago, those forest fires from Canada, they came all the way down to New York City, and the sky was like pretty bright. It was like pretty red and yellow. It was orange. It was extremely Blade Runner 2049. I remember, watching Blade Runner 2049, the Vegas scenes in particular. I was like, man, that's so cool. But I mean, that couldn't be real. Like, that couldn't actually, things couldn't look like that. They can. Didn't that cost you a TV appearance? Yeah, well, that's a whole story for another time. I didn't get to watch a Gordon Ramsay filming. Don't worry about it. Donora, PA killer smog. When fog mixes with air pollution and emissions from cars and factories, it becomes smog. Long-term frequent exposure to smog increases your risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer and is harsh on babies, pets, the sick, and the elderly. Depending on what chemicals are in smog, it can even turn deadly. Such was the case October 27th, 1948 in Donora, Pennsylvania, a small town 20 miles south of Pittsburgh. The town's wire and steel mill emitted hydrogen fluoride, carbon monoxide, and sulfur dioxide that mixed into a toxic smog. An inversion trapped the fog in place, so this thick yellow smog persisted for days until the rain cleared it out on Halloween. 20 people died. Over 6,000 were sickened, and mortality rates from lung cancer remained elevated in the town for decades. This picture here was taken at noon in downtown Donora, but the smog was so thick it blotted out the sun. Chat member just said, just another day in Pittsburgh. Isn't that just the pits? No, yeah, deadly smog, I think. Let's just do a Silent Hill game in Pittsburgh. Urban heat island effect. Hey, I know this place. In the summer, you might notice how much hotter it feels in a big city than out in the countryside. That's because of the urban heat island effect. Concrete, asphalt, tar roofs, and pavement absorb lots of sunlight, which is more intense during the summer, and release it as heat. This is why you can fry an egg on the sidewalk on a hot summer day. It also is what makes the city as much as 15 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the surrounding countryside, which only makes heat waves even worse. Every big city deals with urban heat island, but New York's is particularly bad. The tall buildings, extensive roads, tar roofs will artificially increase the heat during the summer, as shown in this map, courtesy of the New York City Council. The urban heat island effect is more pronounced in parts of New York with less green spaces and fewer trees, like Midtown Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, and the two airports, while it's noticeably cooler in New York's many parks and recreational areas. Yeah, I mean, you can see Central Park on the map here, and you can see Staten Island is usually pretty chill. No pun intended. But, yeah, it's a thing. Combine that with the humidity, and summers in New York can be a little rough. That apparently doesn't compare to Tokyo, though, which I hear is kind of a nightmare in the summer. Raining frogs, fish. This is requested by Vinny. Oh, thanks. For centuries, there have been tales of frogs and fish falling from the sky like rain. People used to believe it was judgment from God, but today we know that the main cause of this is water spouts, sucking them out over the water and throwing them. Out of the water, rather, and throwing them. In the city of Yoro, Honduras, folklore says that for over 200 years there have been instances of fish falling from the sky around the beginning of summer. The city is too far inland for water spouts, so why this happens is still a mystery. The story goes is that it was a miracle from Father Manuel de Jesus Subirana, who was able to convince God to bring fish from the sky to feed the starving townspeople. Every year around the beginning of summer, a festival is held to commemorate the story. This picture is a very old artist's depiction of raining fish because I'm not giving credence to clickbait or AI slop. Okay, gotcha. I'm sure there's several depictions of fish raining. On a side note, back to the city thing, I wanted to mention, I don't know if this was something we covered on stream. Let me know, chat. Did we ever cover a story about how there was a death building? I don't know if it was in New York, but it was so reflective and the sun hit it just right that there were spots on the street that were getting melted. It was melting like cars and shit. That was London. Okay, that was London. It was like a death ray. Oh, Vegas as well, huh? During your New York Minecraft stream. Interesting. Okay, just wanted to check. Fire whirl is a good spell in most video games. If fire gets big enough, it can create its own weather on a localized scale. One example is a fire whirl. The fire heats up the air above it and causes an updraft to form. When it interacts with the wind, it can cause tornado-like vortices that develop that draw in the fire and smoke to become visible. Fire whirls are volatile, unpredictable, and extremely dangerous to firefighters. They can knock over trees and power lines like tornadoes, but can also spread fire even further. One fire whirl during the car fire in 2018 outside of Redding, California would have winds of up to and over 140 miles per hour and sadly would claim the lives of some firefighters. I don't know where this picture was taken, but it's a fire whirl, that's for sure. Yeah, that's pretty, that's insane. That's a thing that I wouldn't believe it if I saw it, and that would also maybe I'd be like, you know what? I think God is trying to say something here. Just a second. I got rid of the logo by accident. I didn't mean to. All right. But also, yes, very cool for video games. Wind chill. During the summer, the wind is your friend, offering you relief from the heat, but during the winter, the wind becomes your enemy, only making the cold feel even worse than it actually is. Your body emits heat all the time and releases it into the air around you in a process called heat transfer. The wind only accelerates this process, making you feel even colder than you would without the wind. It only gets worse the less bundled you are. The wind chill will not cause pipes and radiators to freeze, but it will cause you to develop frostbite and hypothermia faster, the latter of which is deadly. North Dakota has some of America's worst wind chills, already being frigid during the winter months, but the wind is strong here, causing wind chills to plunge well below zero, to as low as negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which will cause hypothermia and frostbite in just minutes. There are few trees and terrain as flat as a pancake, giving you nowhere to hide from the wind. Knowing this, I want you to picture yourself here from within your mind and feel how cold it is when the wind is blowing. Wind chill is a fucking enemy. And again, New York City, just to bring it up again, the buildings can sometimes funnel the wind and focus it, and during the winter, it sucks. I mean, it really can suck. And being bundled up certainly helps, but you feel it in your face. Next, we have storms. Okay, lightning and tall buildings. Here's a sight Vinny's probably familiar with, the Empire State Building getting struck by lightning. True, and I was up top there too. Lightning has a tendency to strike tall objects, as it will usually take the path of least resistance. This means that skyscrapers and TV towers must be equipped with lightning rods, otherwise they'll have to put up with fires and electrical systems getting fried. The Empire State Building is struck 20 to 25 times by lightning per year. Other landmarks frequently struck by lightning include the New World Trade Center across town, CN Tower in Toronto, and the Sears Tower in Chicago. Yeah. No, I mean, I haven't seen it personally, but that's definitely something that would look cool. I wonder, though, chat, lightning rods, can you just store up that power in like a battery? Or is that video games? Kinda, not really, I think so. The battery would explode. The voltage is way too high to store. Theoretical, but not practical. Okay? That's like stuff that when I was a kid I would probably be like, but what if we made a city of lightning rods and like we just got free energy for the entire world? Lightning safety. Important safety tip, do not ever stand under a tree during a storm. Lightning tends to strike tall objects, and trees are more vulnerable to getting struck. A bolt of lightning has temperature of over 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and you will get badly burned from getting close to it. It will also turn all the sap inside of the tree into steam, cause it to split or explode from the inside as shown in this image. If that's not enough, the current of a bolt can jump from tree to you or spread around the tree as ground current, both scenarios resulting in you being electrocuted. The safest place to be with lightning is inside a building. You should stay away from metal objects like fences and poles, and get out of the water if you're swimming or taking a bath. I was always very terrified of being outside in a thunderstorm when I was a kid. And also, I still got it a little bit. To this day, if it's a bad thunderstorm, I mean, it's just kind of, I think, natural to not want to be anywhere outside during a thunderstorm. Even just getting from car to a building or something. It's like, Upper atmosphere lightning. When a thunderstorm is particularly strong, it will have so much electricity that the electrical discharge results in things like red sprites, blue jets, and elves, as shown here in this diagram. This is a relatively new phenomenon, first being observed in 1989. It involves lots of technical papers and terms that Vinny is probably too tired to read. Definitely. And also very, I would not understand what I would be reading, tired or not. These are very hard to see with the naked eye, especially jets and elves, and are mostly captured by low-level cameras and very expensive equipment, Douglas. Your best shot to see them is from space or from a thunderstorm very far away. I mean, there's plenty of phenomena I would imagine we have also classified as UFOs over the years. I'm sure ball lightning, plenty of shit that's just like witnessed very, very, very rarely due to like the perfect atmospheric conditions that got mistaken for something. And I say that as someone who kind of believes that there may be them UFOs. Maybe. Hector. 50 miles off the coast of Darwin, Australia, lie the Tiwi Islands. Nearly every afternoon around 3 p.m. from September to March of next year, huge thunderstorm forms over the islands, so reliably you can set your watch to it. It earned the name Hector from World War II pilots. Hector forms from the collision of several sea breezes from the surrounding waters, which causes rising air and then the formation of thunderstorms. These storms are strong, too, bringing lots of rain, lightning, and strong winds. This picture shows Hector from off the coast of Gun Point, Australia. I love that there's a storm so specifically reliable that it has a name. Every afternoon around 3 p.m. from September to March. That's crazy. That seems like a good place for a city of lightning rods. Yeah, I mean, I think that was in Final Fantasy X as well. We talked about that in, I think, the previous weather segment. There was some really crazy, most lightningest place in the planet. Ratchet and Clank as well. Iowa, derecho. In August 2020, Iowa and Illinois got rocked by one of the worst derechos in history. This huge storm would travel over 700 miles from South Dakota all the way to Ohio, but would hit central and eastern Iowa the hardest. Many areas in and around Des Moines, Iowa City, and the Quad Cities were rocked with lots of wind gusts of 90 to over 100 miles per hour. But Cedar Rapids was hit particularly hard, with some gusts that would reach 140 miles per hour. And it was a huge mess left behind. Many grain bins and barns were destroyed, lots of roofs torn off homes and buildings, walls collapsed, countless trees and power lines down, and a complete blackout resulted that would last for weeks in some areas. This picture shows the storm as it was rolling into the Cedar Rapids area. God damn. Now that's something like, as if 2020 wasn't bad enough, am I right? Someone in chat said, why didn't anyone shoot it? What if, hear me out, chat, what if we shoot the storm with, like, cardboard? No. Sawdust. That'll get rid of all the moisture. Got it. That's possible, I think. Downbursts. When the downdraft of a thunderstorm is particularly strong, it will violently spread out in all directions upon hitting the ground in what is called a downburst. To picture this, think about water violently splashing about the bottom of your sink when you turn on the faucet. Excuse me, a little gas. I'm okay. The damage caused by downbursts is often mistaken for tornadoes. which is understandable as the winds can reach 150 miles per hour. Downbursts are very dangerous to aircraft, and they can force them straight to the ground and cause them to crash. If one comes with rain, it'll rain harder than you've ever seen in your life. That's probably gotta suck. I would very much not like that. April 2001 hailstorm. I was a little too young to remember this, but it happened close to where I live. One of the costliest hailstorms in United States history took place in Missouri in April 2001. A supercell thunderstorm developed just outside Kansas City, Kansas, and would drop hail up to baseball size in an unbroken streak for most of its entire life as it traveled from Kansas City area along I-70 all the way to central Illinois. The hailstorm would cause over $2 billion in damage. Jesus. With lots of broken windows, busted roofs, and damaged siding. Many car dealers had their entire inventory destroyed. Several brand new cars at a Ford assembly plant outside of St. Louis were trashed. It also caused heavy damage to airliners at St. Louis's airport and even military planes belonging to the National Guard. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a picture of this hailstorm in action, so what you have here is an unrelated one. Sorry, Vinny. All good. Yeah, that sounds, at least the 7-Eleven was okay. No, that shit has definitely got a, like... I've seen some hail the size of, like, bigger than baseballs even. Just big chunks. That is a recipe for, like, death. Seriously, like, going outside during a hailstorm, that sounds... You gotta wear a pot on your head, chat. Hail helmet. Imagine standing outside just batting away. Could be batting practice. Tornadoes, chat. El Reno tornado. On May 31st, 2013, a tornado would touch down in the countryside outside El Reno, Oklahoma. It would grow to a monstrous size and would become the largest ever recorded on Earth, 2.6 miles wide. Holy shit. This tornado would be large enough to swallow up all of Central Park in one bite. It was so big, it's hard to find any pictures that clearly show the funnel. It just looks like a big wall of death. Winds in this tornado were estimated to be as high as 300 miles per hour. El Reno is lucky it wasn't hit directly by this tornado, or the destruction would have been of biblical proportions. Unfortunately, this tornado took a sudden turn and caught several storm chasers off guard. Legendary storm chaser Tim Samaras and his crew were killed when their car was overtaken. Jesus, rest in peace. I mean, there's definitely some dark humor here in regards to being a storm chaser. That is a really fucking wacky career to choose for oneself. I would say cave diving is worse, but hey, if you're a storm chaser and you're going, and you see that, I would just fucking turn around, personally. I don't know. But that's crazy. That is a shame. And 2.6 mile wide tornado, like, doesn't even make sense. Like, my brain can't compute that. That sounds like that's like what happens in Final Fantasy VII when Meteor is about to hit the planet. Dear God. Enderlin tornado train. In June 2025, a violent tornado tore through the countryside outside of Enderlin, North Dakota. Man, that is the tornado belt. Jesus. This tornado hit a parked train and threw several cars off the rails. But look in the top middle part of this picture. It's an empty tanker car that usually weighs about 32 tons being thrown over 470 feet. In other words, the length of an entire NFL football field and then some. This tornado would also hit a farmstead and completely sweep a house off its foundation, and unfortunately claim 3 lives. Now, listen. I played the Thomas the Tank Engine game, and I think we went further than a couple football fields. I'm just saying. Western Kentucky tornado. In places like the Deep South, tornadoes will happen just as often at night as they do during the day. Night tornadoes are even more dangerous, as you can't see them without lightning. One of the worst examples of this happened in December 2021 in western Kentucky. A destructive tornado would touch down in far northwest Tennessee, and over the course of 3 hours carve a path of destruction over 165 miles long. It would kill 57. This tornado would tear through several towns along its way, especially the town of Mayfield, whose downtown area took a direct hit. Several brick buildings and storefronts were completely flattened by this tornado, including a candle factory where workers producing candles for Christmas would be trapped. This nightmarish footage was shot by Eddie Knight as the tornado passed by his house. Fuck, man. Man, this is, extreme weather is an understatement. This shit is biblical. Bridge Creek tornado truck. A vehicle is not a safe place to be in a tornado. People who chase them in cars risk their lives. In the stronger tornadoes, cars and trucks may become projectiles picked up and thrown for over a mile. When they come down, they often end up in unrecognizable shapes, such as this one from the infamous May 3rd, 1999 tornado that would go on to decimate Bridge Creek in Moore, Oklahoma. The tornado would go on to produce the strongest winds ever recorded on Earth, 321 miles per hour. This pickup truck was picked up by the twister and wrapped around a utility pole into an unrecognizable shape like a ribbon. The tornado would go on to kill 36 people and completely level several neighborhoods in the town of Moore. It is May 3rd, it was May 3rd, 40 minutes ago, so. Those are like, those winds are like, I think about like different planets. It's like different planet level wind. The sound of a tornado. Staying on the topic of the May 3rd tornado, 1999, this video is one of the best I've seen that shows the unforgettable sound of a tornado. The family who recorded this left their camera recording in the windowsill and took shelter in the basement. The tornado would pass by just down the street from where it was recorded. Houses down the street from here were completely left flattened or swept off their foundation. Wow. Was that the window of... Like, was that this window? Maybe, or a nearby one. That's fucking nuts. I have not experienced weather that... not even close to that extreme, obviously. In New York, we don't really get earthquakes. I mean, a little bit. We got a couple, but... you know, we'll get, like, hurricanes. We'll get some extreme weather. I mean, we had Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene. But, yeah, not, like, really tornadoes. Hurricane stuff is a whole different story. But not this level of, like, watching a funnel pass by. That's pretty nuts. Sorry, I don't have anything more meaningful to say than that, but it's Pretty nuts. Hey, look at that. The tri-state tornado. Oh, the wrong tri-state. Sorry. This is the longest track tornado in history and the deadliest in U.S. history. On March 13th, 1925, a violent tornado touched down outside of Ellington, Missouri, and would travel 219 miles for nearly 4 hours across 3 states until it finally died out near Petersburg, Indiana. Most tornadoes don't even last longer than 10 minutes, so this is an extreme outlier. The tornado would go on to completely decimate multiple towns along its way, such as Annapolis in Missouri, Gorham, Murfreesboro, West Frankfort, and DeSoto in Illinois, and Griffin in Indiana. A total of 695 people were killed, most of them in the town of Murfreesboro, Illinois, including at schools like this one, that were leveled by the tornado. There were no such thing as Doppler radar, computers, or advanced warning in 1925, so you depended on Farmer Brown to know if a tornado was coming. That is the reincarnated spirit of malice, that tornado. You know what I mean? Like, that is some horrible, evil tornado, that is. Blackwell tornado. On May 20th, 1955, a tornado touched down outside of Blackwell, Oklahoma, just after 9 p.m. that night. No pictures of the tornado itself exist, but many eyewitnesses claim that this tornado was glowing in electric blue. Many explanations have been given to why this tornado would glow, ranging from St. Elmo's fire to ball lightning. The tornado would unfortunately live up to the terrifying image it presented and decimate the town, killing 20 people. God damn, there's a lot of death in this segment. It's extreme weather. This picture here is an artist's depiction of a farmer seeing the glowing tornado as it churned through the Oklahoma countryside. Blue tornado? No, that's aliens. I'm sorry, that's just aliens. But yeah, again, crazy weather phenomenon that we don't really fully know how to explain. But if I saw a blue tornado in real life, I would probably start going to church. I don't know what church, a church, any church, all church. Doesn't matter. Numerous water spouts. We've reached the halfway point. You might have seen this picture going around. It was taken in the Adriatic Sea off of the coast of Italy in 1999. It shows 4 water spouts at once. Water spouts are caused by different atmospheric dynamics than tornadoes and allow for several of them to form at once. I feel like this picture would be appropriate for the thalassophobic curiosities. Imagine being a sailor here. That's one of my fears, too, again, is just seeing crazy weather on the horizon. The movie A Perfect Storm, a little corny, but still something I liked to see when it was on TV. That shit was horrifying. And yes, I almost said Watto spouts. I mean, if you look at these and you really kind of just squint your eyes a little bit, picture those being Watto's udders. Like, here, I'll help. What if it was like, that's like Watto's underside, right? Ugh. Storm surge. The most destructive and deadliest part of a hurricane, typhoon, or cyclone, which can be referred to under the umbrella term of tropical cyclone, is not the winds or the rain. It's the storm surge. When a tropical cyclone develops, its strong winds and low pressure allow it to drag a massive pool of water with it that gets dumped onto the shore when making landfall. The water will rise by several feet in just hours because of the storm surge. Low-lying coastal areas are particularly vulnerable, and those who choose not to evacuate often drown. This picture shows the storm surge from Hurricane Carol in 1954, flooding this yacht club in Cranston, Rhode Island. Carol was one of the worst hurricanes in New England's history, with storm surge of 10 to 15 feet, only made worse by Carol making landfall during high tide. 65 people were killed. Millions of dollars of crops were destroyed, and several homes and businesses were destroyed by wind or floods. So it goes without saying, this is the hurricane, typhoons, and cyclone segment. Thanks a lot, Carol. Hurricane Sandy. I have experience with this. Hurricane Sandy was one of the costliest hurricanes in history, but it's crazy what happened by the time she was closing in on New England. Sandy would merge with an upper-level low and powerful cold front. To keep a long story short, Sandy became a freak hybrid of a nor'easter and a hurricane. Upon this, Sandy's wind field and circulation ballooned to over 1,000 miles wide. Sandy would generate strong winds as far away as cities like Cleveland, Washington, D.C., Toronto, Montreal, Detroit. Dump between 1 and 3 feet of snow in the mountains of West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and even spawn a tornado all the way over Bermuda. That's crazy. All of this on top of pounding waves, storm surge, flooding, and destructive winds in New York and New Jersey. This picture is satellite imagery showing Sandy at close to her maximum size as she made landfall. That's nuts. Yeah, I mean, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene got me personally really good where I was living, but Sandy, not as much. However, it fucked up everything else. And yeah, no power. There was, Staten Island got hit really hard. There were places that got destroyed that never reopened. They had to, I don't know if they did this for Irene or Sandy, but they had to build like, because of the flooding, they had to put like sandbanks on the beaches to mitigate potential flooding in the future. So, a lot of crazy shit. Lot of really, I mean, again, power was out for a long time. Jersey got fucked with power too. I had friends that lost a lot of stuff in Sandy. Basements completely destroyed and flooded. And I think now, and the property by the beaches also got, like, less, costly. So, you could get beach property pretty cheap, but at your own risk. Now a lot of that beach property, or close to beach property, is elevated. So, but yeah, it was, yeah. Not a great time for here in Staten Island. And also Seaside Heights, too. Right? Was it Seaside? Or did Seaside get fucked by something else? I don't know if it was Sandy that screwed up Seaside in Jersey. Oh, it did. Okay, it was, yeah. So they had to completely rebuild Seaside Heights. Lavalette, too. Nuts. So anyway, that's just something I could talk about a little bit. When a hurricane moves inland, this is the brown ocean effect, by the way, the terrain will cause its circulation to break down, and the system will either transition into a post-tropical cyclone or die off. But if the land it travels over is already sopping wet or flooded, the system can maintain strength or even intensify over land. It's when this happens really far inland that things get wacky. In 2007, Tropical Storm Erin made landfall in Texas, moved into the heart of the state, and was about to die off. Hot, humid air and soils saturated by floods and heavy rains, as well as other meteorological stuff Vinny's probably too tired to read about, caused Erin to re-intensify in the middle of Texas and achieve hurricane strength over Oklahoma, even acquiring an eye. The satellite imagery of the hurricane, in air quotes, Erin, in the middle of Oklahoma, bringing even more rains and floods and winds of up to 80 miles per hour, stronger than she ever was over sea. Yeah. Interesting. Listen, Vinny can be a little tired sometimes, it's true. Hurricane Katrina statement. On August 28, 2005, Hurricane Katrina was closing in on New Orleans and expected to bring catastrophic damage to the area. Though her winds weakened before she made landfall, the storm surge she already whipped up would cause mass devastation throughout Louisiana, particularly in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans, where the surge would smash through a retaining wall holding a canal between the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain. This was the message sent by the National Weather Service on that day. Here's a reenactment.
Devastating damage expected. Hurricane Katrina, the most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one-half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure. All gabled roofs will fail, leaving those homes severely damaged or destroyed. The majority of industrial buildings will become non-functional. Partial to complete wall and roof failure is expected. All wood-framed low-rising apartment buildings will be destroyed. Concrete block low-rise apartments will sustain major damage, including some wall and roof failure. High-rise office and apartment buildings will sway dangerously, a few to the point of total collapse. All windows will blow out. Airborne debris will be widespread and may include heavy items such as household appliances and even light vehicles. Sport utility vehicles and light trucks will be moved. The blown debris will create additional destruction. Persons, pets, and livestock exposed to the winds will face certain death if struck. Power outages will last for weeks, as most power poles will be downed and transformers destroyed. Water shortages will make human suffering incredible by modern standards.
Oh my God.
The vast majority of native trees will be snapped or uprooted. Only the hardiest will remain standing, but be totally defoliated. Few crops will remain.
Human suffering, huh?
Livestock left exposed to the winds will be killed. An inland hurricane wind warning is issued with sustained winds near hurricane force, or frequent gusts at or above hurricane force are certain within the next 12 to 24 hours. Once tropical storm and hurricane force winds onset, do not venture outside.
This voice is really weird, too.
See your Super Chevy dealer today.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of, that was, There are 100% valid EAS tones in this video. Do not play these tones over the air, as it could result in a fine of up to $500,000 or even jail time. I am not responsible for any false activations of the emergency alert system. Oh, on the air. I think that means like on actual TV. Well, that's what it says in the video description. Johnny, replace it with a fart. Just replace it with a fart. It's fine. I'm sure it's okay. Here, you... Anyway, they need to be really blunt so people know how serious it was. They weren't even exaggerating. No, not at all. And it makes total sense that they would have to be very specific. That's... Yeah, human suffering, exactly. I mean, letting people know, like, get the fuck out of there and be safe. That's... Man. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people had nowhere else to go, really. I mean, that was bad. That was just bad. Rapid intensification. Tropical cyclones, this includes hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons, need 3 key ingredients: warm, open waters, copious moisture, and low wind shear. When all 3 are present, they can gain strength and intensity at a frightening pace. If a hurricane's winds increase by 35 miles per hour or more in the span of 24 hours, it is rapid intensification. One of the most recent examples of this happened in October 2025 with Hurricane Melissa. On October 25th, she would rapidly intensify from Category 1 with winds of 70 miles per hour to Category 4 with winds of 140 miles per hour in just 18 hours. She would eventually become Category 5 with winds of over 180 miles per hour. She became one of the strongest hurricanes ever to make landfall when she tore through Jamaica. This animation shows Melissa strengthening at an explosive pace. The red, dark red, and gray and black in this animation mean deeper convection, which indicates rapid intensification. No, it's not real time, but it's still... I mean, you can see with the time at the bottom, kinda. It's a little crusty, but... yeah. When I was, when I was in the Bahamas as a kid, there was a tropical storm that was supposed to become a hurricane or something like that. It was a long time ago. I barely remember, but I was, yeah, I remember looking out into the ocean and seeing the lightning, and I was like, I'm doomed. It's over. It just was really fucking scary, because again, you're on an island and, in the middle of the Caribbean, and I wasn't sure what that was going to be like. And I also have vague memories of the plane ride being really fucked up. But I was like 10. Anyway, the eye. When a tropical cyclone achieves a certain strength, it spins so fast that centrifugal force starts to push air outward from the center, creating a low pressure. Air comes in from the above to fill this in, which clears out the skies and creates a visible eye. When the eye is more well-defined and rounder, that means the system likely packs a serious punch. It's calm and peaceful inside the eye, but don't go outside, because once the other side of it comes through, these powerful winds in the eye wall come right back. This image shows footage from a hurricane hunter's plane flying through Hurricane Irma 2017, taking data and observations from the system. There's a video here. Sorry, I had a little trouble reading that. I don't know why. Hurricane hunters. God damn. Gotta have some fucking balls of steel to fly into a hurricane. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. A lot of this is just, that's crazy. Sorry for that in terms of my commentary, but it really is. It's crazy. They fly into everything, including the Hurricane Melissa one you saw. Also, for the Bahamas, I didn't grow up rich. There's like a couple people in chat like, oh, you're rich. No. I've explained this on stream before. That was a very saved up for vacation. And there was a little period of time where my family had a little bit of money that was saved, and then all of that went away. So I had that experience, and then it was gone. But it was fun while it lasted. So I kind of, I had, growing up, it was like, really had to save up for video games. And that was like that's kind of how I spent my money. Just video games. Lots of them. Typhoon Haiyan. Haiyan? Typhoons are the same thing as hurricanes. They just go by that name in the Western Pacific in countries like Philippines, China, Japan, Vietnam, and the many island nations out there. Typhoons are numerous out there due to this area having some of the warmest waters in the world. The wide open space for them to develop. They're also fierce and usually stronger than hurricanes. One of the worst examples happened in 2013 with Typhoon Haiyan. He became one of the strongest tropical cyclones ever recorded, with peak winds reaching 195 miles per hour. Haiyan would go on to become the costliest typhoon in Filipino history, kill over 6,000, and completely destroy several towns and cities by strong winds and storm surges. That is, I mean, if that's the case, I'm sure there's like probably there have to be shelters, right? Like there are shelters in a town that you could go to in places like this. Yeah. Well, one would hope so. Far and few. Not really in some places. It's a huge, it's a huge problem, and it's just nature. It's just nature. You go and here's this beautiful tropical location, and then, oh wait, Satan's asshole has spawned over the island. Right. Bola cyclone. Cyclones are the same thing as hurricanes and typhoons. They go by this name in the Indian Ocean, Australia, and South Pacific. Cyclones are not as numerous as typhoons or hurricanes, since there's not as much open waters here, and they cannot cross the equator due to the insufficient Coriolis force. But when they do happen, the result can get ugly. November 1970, a cyclone would develop in the Bay of Bengal and travel northward, or Bengal, Bay of Bengal, and travel northward toward what is now Bangladesh, then a territory of Pakistan known as East Pakistan. The cyclone would intensify to the equivalent of a Category 3 hurricane and bring storm surge of over 20 feet, only made even worse to how low in elevation much of Bangladesh is. The Bola cyclone would become one of the deadliest disasters in history, killing over 300,000 people. Oh, fucking dear Lord. The government response to the storm would cause outrage and eventually result in Bangladesh going to war for independence against Pakistan, which it won. That's also a little bit of history that I was unaware of. So, wow. The population is dense in Bangladesh. Yeah, I guess so. That I was not expecting to read a number like that. I mean, we had a couple hundred, couple thousand, which still sucks. I mean, even one is terrible, but that's the problem with stuff like this too, is when you start to see numbers and it's just like, oh, that's a number. It's like quite a bit more than that, isn't it? But that's, yeah. Size extremes. Tropical cyclones come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. The largest ever recorded was the Typhoon Tip in 1979. Typhoon Tip would reach a monstrous size of 1,380 miles wide, or just about the length from New York City to Dallas in a straight line. The fuck? Tip wasn't just the biggest, he was also one of the strongest, with a record low core pressure of 870 MB and winds of 190 miles per hour at peak intensity. Fortunately, Tip would weaken as he closed in on southern Japan. When he made landfall, was nowhere near as strong. On the other hand, you have Cyclone Tracy, one of the smallest tropical cyclones ever recorded, measuring at 9 miles wide, but packing destructive winds of 155 miles per hour, striking Darwin, Australia on Christmas 1974. Tracy would kill 66, destroy up to 70% of the city, and force the city to rebuild to new standards to prevent destruction like this from happening again. This image shows Typhoon Tip and Cyclone Tracy superimposed over the United States to give you a picture of their size. What's funny is seeing the typhoon being like half the size of the United States, almost, and you're like, wow. That is biblical. But then, when you think about how big Cyclone Tracy is, that's huge. That's like huge. Floods. The Great Flood of 1993. The Mississippi and Missouri rivers are no strangers to major floods. One of the worst of which happened in 1993. The winter of 1992 was very snowy across the Midwest, and the spring and summer was very wet and rainy due to a persistent weather pattern that had set up. The Mississippi and Missouri rivers would quickly top their banks and spread out into one of the largest floods in U.S. history. That would affect 9 states. The cities hardest hit were St. Louis, Jefferson City, Kansas City, and the Quad Cities, and Des Moines. Familiar names for the segment. Hundreds of levees failed, countless towns were inundated, and farms washed away. 50 people were killed, and over $15 billion in damages were caused. The McDonald's pictured here was a mile and a half away from the riverbank. Wow. Of all the pictures, too. I'm sorry, open waterfront dining? That was the sign? Jesus. Gotta have some laughs along the way, I guess. The Plaza flash flood. I cannot stress this enough, chat. Do not ever drive into floodwaters. Even if you have a big truck or SUV, it could be your last mistake. A good example of this happened September 12th, 1977 in Kansas City, Missouri, close to where I live. Not me, but the pack creator. 2 rounds of heavy thunderstorms that day would result in a total of over a foot of rain in some places, causing extensive flooding in the streets, creeks, and streams, particularly along Brush Creek. The creek would become a raging torrent that burst from its banks and inundated the Country Club Plaza area of town. 25 people were killed from the flash flood. 17 of them were in cars that got washed away by the flood. Several more had to be rescued from cars, a dangerous ordeal. A gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds, so when you have thousands and thousands of them as you would in a flood, a car is just a glorified toy boat. Johnstown flood. Floods can push our infrastructure to its breaking point, and the results are catastrophic. An example of this happened May 1889 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a city about 50 miles east of Pittsburgh. Heavy rains would cause Lake Conemaugh, a reservoir 15 miles southeast of town holding up the Little Conemaugh River, to swell up and eventually break through the South Fork Dam, unleashing nearly 4 billion gallons of water. It came out like a massive tidal wave, washing away everything in its path, including the entire town of Mineral Point all the way down to the bedrock. The water would eventually reach the city of Johnstown, where it washed away several factories and industrial areas, contributing to the picture of this massive wave of debris from everything that had been swept up from floodwaters, from trains to trees, entire buildings, and more. Over 2,000 people were killed, making it one of the deadliest disasters in U.S. history. Washing away the soil down to the bedrock is pretty nuts. Death and Destruction, the Vinesauce segment. Just a little light Sunday stream for all of us to enjoy. Red River ice jam floods. These floods involve rain, snow, and ice all at the same time, which makes them some of the weirdest floods I know about. The Red River of the North, which runs along the border of South Dakota and Minnesota into Manitoba to Lake Winnipeg, would often freeze solid during the winter, which poses a problem come spring. Chunks of ice will break off and start floating down the river until they get stuck in the several hairpin turns and cause water to start backing up. This is big trouble for Fargo and Grand Forks, as the terrain around the river is flat as a pancake, and major floodings often result. The worst of which happened 1997, April. Heavy snow from the winter would melt where the ice jams happened, and much of Grand Forks was flooded, forcing nearly the entire city to be evacuated. There was even a huge fire that broke out during the flood in downtown Grand Forks that would destroy 11 buildings and 60 apartments. The floodwaters would not completely recede until June. Let's see. Sure, why not? Devil's Lake flooding. You may have heard of lakes around the world that have been shrinking due to drought, water usage, climate change, etc. But Devil's Lake in North Dakota has the opposite problem. It's been growing and fast since 1993. North Dakota's climate has been wetter the last 30 years. This is a problem because no creeks, streams, or rivers go in and out of Devil's Lake. So the water will keep rising until it spills over into the plains and into the Cheyenne River to the south. Devil's Lake has quadrupled in size since 1993, and it's still growing, turning highways into causeways and consuming railroads, country roads, several farms, and even some small towns like Penn and Church's Ferry. You can't drink the water of Devil's Lake because it's salty. Since the salt has nowhere to go, it just builds and builds inside the lake. When Devil's Lake eventually spills over, this will be a big problem for towns along the Cheyenne River, all the way down to Fargo. That's crazy. That is genuinely Satan's thirsty asshole right there. Man, I don't know. At a specific point, how do you even mitigate something like this? It's that much? Do you relocate Fargo? I don't know. Man, that is very interesting, but also very unfortunate. But I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard about this specific type of thing. You would think, like, yeah, with droughts, that's what we have. But who knew a lake was getting bigger? And that big. Atmospheric river. There are a few like this in the world, but the one we'll be studying is the one from Hawaii to the west coasts, commonly known as the Pineapple Express, and not the weed movie. During the fall and winter months, a pattern sets up so that a high pressure west of Central America and low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska act as rollers to direct the flow of warm, moist air to the west coast of the US and Canada, as shown by the arrows I drew in the air. I drew for airflow, excuse me. This creates a stream of moisture known as an atmospheric river, and it brings lots of rain to the coast and lowlands and snow to the mountains. However, some atmospheric rivers are too strong and result in mudslides and flash floods. You may have heard about the bad floods in November and December 2025 in Washington state being caused by one. This resulted in several rivers flooding, farms being washed out, and roads being swept away. The Pineapple Express, in this context, won't get you high, but it'll get you very wet. It's not true. We made it up. Is that where the movie got its name, I wonder? Highways still broken, FYI. Oh. Big Thompson flood. When floods happen in mountainous areas, the results are always disastrous. One of the best examples of this happened in July 1976 near Estes Park, Colorado. A complex of thunderstorms stalled over the area, dumping over a foot of rain across the area, including over 7 inches of it in the span of an hour at one point. With this much rain coming down, the Big Thompson River became a raging torrent, swelling to a 30-foot surge of water as it roared downstream into Big Thompson Canyon. Hundreds of campers were caught within the flood, left stranded by US 34 being washed out by the water. Cabins, RVs, and trees were swept away, went floating down the river. The town of Glen Haven was hit particularly hard by the flood. 144 people were killed in the flood, making it one of the deadliest in US history. Death and destruction due to weather, the stream. However, now it's time for winter. Winter weather. Lake effect snow. The Great Lakes have a profound effect on weather due to their size. One of the most notorious effects is lake effect snow, which people in and around cities like Marquette, Erie, Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, and Cleveland must put up with every winter. Bitter cold air from the heart of Canada moves southward over the Great Lakes, which are comparatively much warmer. This air quickly becomes overloaded with moisture as it moves across the lakes, causing it to condense into clouds and then lots of snow. It's not unusual for snowfall rates to reach several inches per hour when lake effect snow happens. Some of America's snowiest cities are Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and upstate New York because of lake effect snow. With Syracuse being America's snowiest large city, it can get over 200 inches of snow a year during bad winters. Lake effect snow usually falls from November through January, up until lakes freeze over the winter. I had no idea. I had no idea it was that big. That's like a lot of snow. That is a big amount of snow. Dog. That doesn't seem, I don't know. That doesn't seem fun. We had a lot of snow in New York this year, in New York City. We had, some crazy shit. Many inches of snow. And I was worried it was going to affect my flight when I went to Universal. So I can't even imagine 200 inches per year. That's pretty nuts. Look at this car frozen in ice in Buffalo. This is related. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. That's some interesting setting for a video game, maybe. Yuki no Otani. Holy shit. I've seen this picture, I think, but holy shit. A more extreme version of lake effect snow happens in Japan during the winter. Bitter, cold air from Siberia moves over the Sea of Japan, becomes overloaded with moisture, and then collides into the many mountains in Japan, resulting in even more snow than the Great Lakes. Some of the world's snowiest cities are in Japan because of what is basically lake effect snow on steroids, with Aomori City, Japan, as the world's snowiest city, with over 300 inches of snow per year. So much snow falls, construction machinery and trains are required to clear the roads and result in these huge canyons of snow known as Yuki no Otani, which translates into Great Snow Canyon. As the Sea of Japan does not freeze over, it is warmed by the Tsushima Current, so the snow doesn't end until it warms in spring. Even so, these walls of snow can take all the way up to summer to melt just because of how large they are. This is probably what Frappy Snowland from Mario Kart 64 was based off of. Huh. A chat member said that's just like that one Mario Kart level. Honestly, that's kind of maybe what came to mind as well. Pretty interesting. Thunder snow. You need warm, muggy air. You need warm, muggy air on the ground to have lightning in a storm. This is not the case during the winter, but if you have even colder air aloft and relatively warmer air on the ground, you might be able to jumpstart the dynamics that result in lightning. This is the rare and elusive thunder snow, and yes, people have been struck by lightning before in a snowstorm, such as 4 teenagers in Maine going sledding in 2002. Thunder snow is more common in lake effect snow and among mountains, but even then it's very rare. The thunder is not as loud during snowstorms because the snow muffles the sound. This picture was taken of thunder snow in Calgary, Alberta. I don't think you know what? I think I might have actually seen that at some point in my life. That feels like a thing I've seen, but I don't know for sure. In any case, that is definitely something that you're going sledding and you're like, oh, it's nice out. No. Thunder snow. Snow rollers. This is one of the weirdest things weather can throw at you, and one of the rarest. They require very specific conditions to form. Fresh layer of moist, loose snow on top of another layer of firm, packed layer snow or ice. Sorry, that was written kind of weird. So a layer of fresh, moist, and loose snow on top of another layer of firm, packed layer of ice or snow. A decent strength wind of about 30 miles per hour, temperatures close to freezing, and a gentle slope or flat field with no obstacles in the way. The wind will then dislodge a chunk of snow, roll it up into a cylindrical shape like a burrito, causing it to grow until neither gravity nor wind can push it forward anymore. The innermost layers will then blow away, giving the snow roller its iconic hollow shape. Most snow rollers are about the size of a tennis ball, but if one forms along a slope, enough of a slope, they can grow to be as large as a car. These snow rollers were taken in Lewison, Idaho. So the thing is with this picture, sorry for the reading there, the thing is for this picture is I thought they were huge, and now I see the grass and they're probably small, but now I know they can be huge. So maybe they're huge, but those are probably small. Blizzard conditions. The National Weather Service will classify a snowstorm as a blizzard if the following three conditions are met. The storm has a strong sustained wind of 35 miles per hour or more. Blowing snow causes visibility to fall below a quarter of a mile, and the two conditions are maintained for at least 3 hours. Note that blizzards don't need to dump a ton of snow. Ones like these happen all the time in the Great Plains during the winter. The one pictured here in Goodland, Kansas, just barely made the cut, all while dropping about 2 to 3 inches of snow. Snow is often dry and powdery in the Great Plains, and the winds get very strong during blizzards, easily reducing visibility to well below a quarter mile. Many highways out here will close during blizzards, as it's very easy to get stranded or lost out here. Got just a couple more. The 1966 blizzard. That said, there are some blizzards that do dump a lot of snow here in the Great Plains. It all depends on how much moisture from the Gulf of Mexico that the system causing the blizzard has access to. When the system causes the blizzard when the system causing the blizzard has a strong enough inflow and is close enough to the Gulf, it'll take in copious amounts of moisture, resulting in heavy snow and huge snow drifts. One example happened in North Dakota in March 1966, resulting in this iconic picture that was taken after the blizzard. The system that causes the blizzard was a Colorado low that had access to plenty of moisture. The Gulf of Mexico, with snowfall totals exceeding 3 feet in some places near hurricane force winds of 70 miles per hour and drifts that would reach 30 to 40 feet tall, enough to bury utility poles as shown in this picture here. Sorry, I'm at the end of the night, my reading has gone down to poop, but we're almost done. Blizzard of 88. Wait. No, this is New England ice storm in 1998. Sometimes there will be a layer of warmer air sandwiched between the cold air on the ground and the colder air higher up. Snow will fall, then melt into rain, and then cool into supercooled water in the form of freezing rain. When it hits the ground, it will freeze and turn into ice, causing roads to become slippery and putting trees and power lines under immense stress from the weight of the ice. One of the worst examples of this happened in January 1998 in parts of New York, Vermont, Ontario, and Quebec. Some places would receive up to 5 inches of freezing rain. Roads would become virtually impossible to travel. Entire forests of trees, power lines, and even transmission towers and high-voltage power lines would crumple under the weight of the ice. The power grid would become completely incapacitated in cities like Montreal and Ottawa. It looks cool, but yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. I've seen a lesser degree of this, but that is, yeah. I mean, some of the snow we had this past year, we had a really snowy and like blizzardy, well, not blizzard, like snow, just snowy and icy winter here in New York. And we had some really fucking cold days, but I definitely saw some like bushes and trees sagging from it. Someone said, I had to live in my local church for 5 days playing Nintendo with random kids during this shit. That's crazy. Knowing that we have chat members who were in this area at this time is... Well, it's kind of cool, actually. Blizzard of 1888. One of the worst blizzards in history happened in New England in 1888, particularly in New York City. This one was much worse than the one that bag-dicked your stream earlier this year. On March 12th, 1888, Jesus, a vicious nor'easter moved in from the Atlantic and parked itself over the New England area for the next day and a half, bringing very strong winds and gusts reaching 80 miles per hour in some places. Bitter cold and heavy snow of up to 50 inches. New York City was incapacitated because of the blizzard, and telegraph lines being downed by wind and railroads and public transit grinded to a complete halt as they were buried by the snow. People would be stranded in their homes for days. Several ships at sea would be sunk during the violent storm, and 400 people would die from hypothermia or disease, making it the deadliest snowstorm in U.S. history. In response to all this, all telephone and telegraph systems would be reconstructed underground, and New York's iconic subway system would be constructed and opened in 1902 in response to public transit being shut down because of the storm. Crazy. Someone in chat said, I was there, it was crazy, I had to harvest and consume the souls of several orphans to survive. Oh man, this one was bad. I had to sleep at school and play Dreamcast with my neighbor and live off potatoes for a decade. Vinny, I was there when that happened. I had to play my PS5 in the community center. Well, as a New Yorker, I was around for this too. Chat, I had to play my Wonder Swan in a pool, a covered pool. We put a tarp over a pool, and it was me, a priest, a rabbi, and we walked into a bar. Wait. But yes, this is something that I didn't notice at first for many years, that we don't have power lines and telephone lines in New York City, like in the sky, not in the sky, you know what I mean, above ground. And then I'm like, wait a minute, where is all that shit? It's under the street and the fucking sidewalk. In the sky. But yeah, it's I just never really thought about it. Finally. Oh! Aurora. I wanted to end this segment on something tame. Aurora is the general term used to refer to Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis. Aurora Borealis forms in the northern hemisphere, while Aurora Australis forms in the southern hemisphere. Both form in the same way, from Earth's magnetic field interacting with plasma and charged particles ejected from the sun in events known as coronal mass ejections, CME. While they look pretty, aurora will be becoming more of a hindrance to us as technology evolves and we start traveling into space more, because the particles released from the CMEs that cause aurora will destroy satellites and fry telecom systems and even electrical grids if they're strong enough. It still makes for amazing pictures, though. It is pretty cool. That would be nice to witness in my life at some point. I hope this segment went over better than the last one. I was able to dumb it down enough as Vinny requested. I want to say thanks to Vinny for putting this segment on stream and for constructive feedback from the last segment. It will hopefully make this one go smoother than last time. Credits to Nozomi for coming up with the name of the segment, and his name is Nelson for creating Weather Channel parody Screenbug, and for introducing me to Imitation Local on the 8s program. That is a different thing. I'm not doing that, sorry. But before the segment ends, I just got one more thing I wanted to share with Vinny.
Hey, Pops, does this thing work?
Great. Well, two things. One chat member said these educational segments might be just my favorite as of late. Great segment, great segment. um, is a bit repetitive but better. So here's my thought on the educational segments. I am happy to do this stuff. I really think I think it's great. I like learning. I like going over new things that I haven't known or seen, or maybe I only know a little bit about. I like weird stuff. I like learning about space. I like learning about just strange things that can happen on the planet. I know there's so many people have made so many different packs, and I'm trying to do like one every week or one every 2 weeks now because there's so many. And there's one on like insects. There's stuff, there's more space ones. I forgot who made another space segment. Listen, it's worth reminding me. If you have a good one that you put work into, use the submission, submit.vinesauce.com, use the submission system, or, you can just remind me through email, but I would prefer the submission system. That's a good way to do it. I would say one of the things that I really would like to emphasize is if you say it's an hour, I promise you it's going to be an hour and a half. And for me, that's one of the things that it gets a little tough. And I think this weather segment was better and very interesting. And there was some really, it was a little dark. But yes, repetitive is one way to put it. I think, maybe 8 to 10 of the entries kind of felt like duplicates, but interesting duplicates nonetheless. But for me doing the narration, I feel like as best as possible, trying to get a segment to like 1 hour really helps me out. And that way I can kind of give it all of the energy and reading power that I have. And I feel like it's just like an hour seems like it's like a TV show, it's like a perfect length for a documentary. That's just kind of me complaining a little bit, but the truth is I'm really grateful to do segments like this because as I get older, it's nice to have something a little different, something a little bit more interesting. We've done lots of Bing Bing Wahoos. We've done a lot of weird games, corruptions, bad games. I'm still down for those. Please, if you got them, send them in. But I also like the PowerPoints and the educational segments because we can learn something a little bit different, and we can, I'm learning alongside the chat, but it's kind of cool that we're focusing our collective energy on something maybe a little bit more, useful in life or interesting. I don't know. Not that gaming stuff isn't useful or interesting. It can be. Well, more interesting than useful. But, hey, now you know, chat. Don't dive into floodwater. And don't stand outside under a tree during a lightning storm. No Mario? Not really. Hey, these Marios don't count because that's an older Mario. That's a Mario from last week. So no Mario. I'm going to tell you what. If we did Gary's mod, there would have been Mario. But it can be really tough to predict how long a Sunday stream is going to be. I know there's usually one segment that's shafted. I would rather have an extra segment I'm prepared for, as opposed to... I would rather have an extra segment than me not be prepared. I heard there's only like 8 Mario segments left before they run out. Hey, 8 segments is still pretty good. The sheer number of ROM hacks. I already have a whole new segment of Mario's, even from last week. And I'm going to be real with you. In the Gmod segment, there was going to be some Mario. Something really cool. But I'll save it. I have some good Gmod stuff, and that'll be another time. I also have a really interesting Majora's Mask thing that I will play soon. Maybe this week. I might end up doing something like, dissect an alien this week as well. We'll see. But Chat, I want to thank you. I'm going to end the stream by just saying one last thing. Okay. I'll be live this week with Tomodachi, and I might play more Pragmata. I'm not sure. And, all the other stuff. Got some interesting one-off segments as well. I think the Horseman will return. That's very possible. We have a couple games we've been meaning to check out. Gonna get in touch with Jolly again, see what he's up to. But I really just want to stress and emphasize that this is helpful for me. I like streaming. It's something I genuinely enjoy doing. And, the truth is, this is a really lucky thing that I get to do. I feel very, very grateful that I get to do this and people are interested in what I have to say and the games I stream. And when things get a little tough, like I said, I had a stressful weekend because just life. You know how it is. We all, whether you're the luckiest person in the world, life happens. Things happen. I'm fine. There's no what must I do here. I'm okay. But I just want you to know that I'm very happy I get to do these streams because it's just fun for me. It's cool to take a break from real life for a little bit and do some streaming. So, yeah. Hope you all have a good night. I'll see you during the week. And take care. Goodbye. Fuck it, Mario.